Right, I have a lot to talk about and very little time. So if I talk too fast, you can go back and watch the video and slow down the audio. I am forever grateful to Lavette for telling us about Maurice Cotterell, because everything that I've said about Ishtar would make so much sense. And if you're smart, you'll download that playlist because a lot of the information is disappearing. So I'll leave a link for that. This god has a long name, so I will just refer to him as Tila. Tila is an Aztec deity representing the planet Venus and an apparition of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. The Aztec rituals were enacted when the sun was in a particular position in the sky in relation to the position of the planet Venus, identified with Tila, and that of the Pleiades. The Pleiades and Venus met each other in April this year. Tila was the twin dual deity of the planet Venus as morning star Quetzalcoatl and evening star Xolotl. So I think that's why CERN is 22, because it was built in alignment with Venus, who is Ishtar. Venus is very similar to Earth in size and mass, and so it's sometimes referred to as Earth's sister planet. The ancient Mexicans, being expert astronomers, could predict precisely on which days and at which times the star would appear and disappear. Not only were they well aware of its 584-day cycle around the sun, they even knew that its exact cycle is actually 583 days, 22 hours, 6 minutes, and 40 seconds, and they allowed for the difference to be made up in their calculations every 88 years. While the fertility attributes of Venus can be understood in terms of the most fundamental concerns of the agriculturally based Mesoamerican societies, whose subsistence depended on a considerable extent on the vagaries of the climatic regime, the planet's association with warfare and sacrifice can be accounted for by religious and political justification of these practices, which were intimately related to ritual performances intended to secure a proper sequence of cyclical natural changes and the ensuring agricultural fertility. The most important aspect of the symbolism of Venus was its conceptual association with rain and maize, in which the evening star had a prominent role. As revealed by different kinds of evidence, including architectural alignment to these phenomena, Venus was one of the celestial agents responsible for the timely arrival of rains, which conditioned a successful agricultural season. The planet also had an important place in the concepts concerning warfare and sacrifice, but this symbolism seems to have been derived from other ideas that characterize Mesoamerican religion. Human sacrifices were believed necessary for securing rain, agricultural fertility, and a proper functioning of the universe in general. Since the captives obtained in battles were the most common as sacrificial victims, the military campaigns were religiously sanctioned, and the Venus, rain, maize associations became involved in sacrificial symbolism and warfare ritual. These ideas became a significant component of the political ideology, fostered by rulers who exploited them to satisfy their personal ambitions and secular goals. In sum, the whole conceptual complex surrounding the planet Venus in Mesoamerica can be understood in the light of both observational facts and the specific socio-political context. Now we go back to the Denver Airport mural because this ties into a lot of things. A Mayan dancer representing warrior god Ek-Balam. I spoke about Balam when I did the video about Mr. Beast. A Balam is a jaguar. And what do we have on the mural? A dead Balam. And it makes me think of the Chilambalam. Books of Chilambalam, group of documents written in Yucatec Maya, a principal source of knowledge of ancient Mayan custom. They contain myth, prophecy, medical lore, calendrical information, and historical chronicles. And I also found another Balaam, as a diviner in the Torah whose story begins in chapter 22 of the Book of Numbers.
So the eyes, the nostrils, the beak. Then we have the human face with a butterfly shape on each lip. Now I know this. This is the god of ice and the god of... This is Venus. Venus was the god of ice in the morning, the ice crystals. Clahuis Kapaltikutli, his name was. And he wore a blindfold, and the blindfold was made out of the skin of a sacrificed victim. I know what I'm looking for, but you won't at this stage. I understand that.
Tila represented the dual aspect of the planet Venus, known to Mesoamericans as a bright star. Even the architectural layout of cities, notably Teotihuacan, Toltec, Tallinn, Maya Uxmal, and Chichen Itza, were built and aligned in accordance with the appearance of Venus at particular moments during its cycle. Venus was often symbolized by a skull, and so too representations of Tila depicted him as a feathered serpent with a skull face, as the god was closely associated with Mixcoatl, he sometimes wears the markings of that star god, white spots around a black field. For ancient Mesoamericans, Tila was one of the four sky bearers, the gods who held up the sky. So he was a sky god. Who were the sky gods? Inanna Ishtar, Nana Sin, and Utu Shamash. Who is Ishtar? Roman equivalent, Venus. Each aspect of Venus, morning and evening, was manifested in the form of two ancient Mesoamerican gods, the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl and his canine companion Holotl. Quetzalcoatl represented Venus as the morning star, and Holotl represented it as the evening star. In typical Mesoamerican duality, Tila was imagined as both and as the twin brother of Holotl, and thus, above all, he represented the morning star aspect of Venus, which was considered a menacing one. Considering that Venus was associated with different Mesoamerican rain gods, its relationship with maize does not come as a surprise. Since Atamalcuitli, the Aztec feast of the rejuvenation of maize, was celebrated at 8-year intervals, it may have been related to Venus. 8 years is the time span after which Venus phenomena occur on approximately the same date of the year, as well as the canonical period of the planet's invisibility around inferior conjunction was 8 days. It is thus significant that the Maya maize god was patron of the number 8, which is why I re-uploaded the video from 2019. Sun is a stargate because I connected it to Ishtar. The Venus rain maize conceptual relationship in Mesoamerica clearly has ancient origins. In central Mexico and in the Maya area, there were different but apparently related glyphs for Venus. The cross that frequently appears on the representations of rain and fertility deities in the central Mexican classic period is similar to the Mayan Can cross, but in many instances it strongly resembles the glyph, a cruciform Mayan sign for Venus. While the reading of this glyph is simply star, the context in which it appears indicate that in many cases it refers to the star par excellence, Venus, and A and B are the symbols for Venus the star. This UK woman apparently got the vaccination. Look what she's wearing. And now let's go back to here. It says that Tila sometimes wears the markings of the star god, white spots around a black field. White spots, it's not a black background, but it is blue. And why is it that her cardigan looks a lot like this man who's portraying a Balaam? How to recognize Tila. He's usually shown with a sharply peaked feathered crown consisting of a red headband sporting two almond-shaped decorative flashes, often painted red and white. So she's wearing a top with a penguin on it, who's wearing a little red hat or a headband, and it's red and white. Now it says that Tila represented a rain god, and what's behind that woman's head? It says north well. What is at the bottom of a well? And a well is a portal. So this woman in America got the vaccination as well for this corona thing. His hair, on the other hand, was colored yellow, his body often gray and black. So her hair has a yellow tint to her. I thought that was strange when I saw it, like she's got yellowish sorts of hair. His body is often grey or black, and his arms and legs frequently bore the distinctive red and white stripes of gladiatorial victims. There's your red and white stripes, right there.
Out of the crack in the nose bridge area comes this maiden, and she opens her legs, she points to her forehead with the compasses of the Freemasons, and she laughs and smiles. Out of her womb comes a baby with a pearl in its mouth with wings. That's its back legs and its bottom, and there's its two arms. And the baby spits out a pearl, and the pearl becomes two solar babies. There's two babies there that we saw earlier. The twins, Venus. Do you remember the two babies were from Mexico with a solar mark on their stomachs earlier? That's what these two are. And these tell us that they're joined at the navel by a star. So this is Venus. This tells us that when Lord Paykal died, his soul went to heaven. It was carried by the Quetzal bird, the baby bird that was on his head. And he was reborn as Venus, the twins. So this tells us that Lord Paykal was Jesus. He was the rebirth of Venus. I am the bright and morning star. And this is why we have the pearl in the seashell. He was Venus in the heavens. Just like it says in Revelation, I am the morning star and the evening star.
So she's got a pearl necklace which connects her to Venus. So she and the old woman are the twins of Venus, And I assume that the white woman is the morning star, and this one is the evening star because she's black. That's how they talk to each other. Now look at this. On the wall that I've circled in red, those three purple things look a lot like radiation. Ultraviolet electromagnetic radiation having a wavelength between the violet end of the visible spectrum and X-rays. This vaccination is going to block the radiation from activating in certain people. The return of the blue star Kachina, who is also known as Nanga Sohu, will be the alarm clock that tells us of the new day, a new way of life, a new world that is coming. This is where the changes will begin. Now this is a figurine of the blue star Kachina. Let's go back to the Denver airport mural. The dead Mexican woman is holding what looks like the blue star Kachina. However, the Kachina is holding a little bell. Death knell, the ringing of a bell to mark a person's death, an indication of the end of something. Look at her, she's wearing shell earrings that connects her to Venus, so this woman probably represents the death of Venus. Now we go back to the two pictures, the mind glyphs of the star Venus, and it looks very similar to what the blue star Kachina is holding and has around him, so it's possible that the blue star Kachina represents the planet Venus, and I think the retrograde that we're having soon, or that we did have, I can't remember. But these ancient people told us they were extremely intelligent, more so than we are, and now I'll leave you to brew over it.